A first-of-its-kind study on stay-at-home fathers is recommending extended paternity leave to encourage more shared parenting responsibility. According to the study, the majority of stay-at-home dads did so not by choice, but out of necessity. Reasons relate to health or jobs or children who require extra attention, including those with special needs.
Fathers also reported developing strong parenting philosophies when they became the primary caregiver, while attitudes towards traditional parenting affected how fathers fully embraced their roles. For example, many said that women were naturally suited to caregiving well. To find out more about that question and, of course, on this topic as a whole, Yvonne Arivalagan is the researcher of the study from IPS. Yvonne, interesting topic, but why do you think it is that the fathers stay at home only out of necessity, as we mentioned in our introduction, rather than actually wanting to do so?
I think there's still a lot of stigma around being a male caregiver, being a stay-at-home dad. So naturally, I think that led to many of them not wanting to do this out of choice. But, you know, when the economic circumstances were right, so when they were maybe looking for a new job, or when they had a spouse that earned more and a higher and more stable income, they felt that the economic circumstances were suited to it, and many just went into that role as a result. Yeah.
The traditional sort of school of thought is that if you have grandparents, they might be able to help out and take some of the load off, right, from parenting.
Yep.
But your study revealed that they weren't considered. Grandparents are not automatically considered as an ideal source, an ideal caregiver. Why do you think that's so?
Well, I mean, they were considered, but I think a lot of the dads that I spoke to, they felt that parents should be first and foremost primary caregivers. Of course, grandparents' help was welcome. It still is very much welcome. But some respondents told me that as parents, people nowadays are getting married later, having children later. That means grandparents themselves are older by the time they have their first grandkid. So in terms of energy levels, you know, to look after a small kid for the whole day, it may not be as much as it used to be. So in terms of values as well, do grandparents have similar values as modern parents about raising children? So due to these kind of differences, many felt that if given the opportunity, they would like to be the primary caregiver.
One thing that was also interesting is the research that you did. You found out that, you know, after staying at home, the dads actually still kept a very strong association with, you know, the traditional, so-called traditional ideas of masculinity. None of that was eroded. They probably gained a lot more as well. Was that an important finding for you?
Yeah, it was important.
How will you use this information?
I mean, I think it just goes to show that gender identity is important to all of us, but it also shows that this traditional masculine identity need not be mutually exclusive from being a caregiver. Both these identities can coexist, and I think that's, you know, an important point of communication going forward when we shape public campaigns around promoting active fatherhood. Like, you can be both at the same time. It's not necessarily emasculating to want to be a primary caregiver. It shouldn't be.
So what's it going to take to sort of get rid of this social stigma for stay-at-home dads? What support do they need?
So I think policy support would go a long way if paternity leave was increased. For example, if there were, say, more different kinds of support policy-wise. It will go a long way in terms of signaling to society that this is something that is valued, it's accepted. I think employment policies as well, when employers are a bit more open, a bit more accepting to their male employees who might want to take a longer period of time off to look after their children, when that's accepted as well, I think that would go a long way in terms of shifting the social norm.
So, I mean, from what you're saying, I'm hearing that you currently feel perhaps the policies are not adequate employment-wise. You want to see the current ones in place do not, you know, facilitate this kind of environment. And you're also suggesting extending maternity leave.
Well, actually, this is something that the respondents of my study told me. A couple of them did mention that when they took paternity leave back then, when they were employed, the 2 weeks was simply not sufficient for them to invest substantially in childcare. But when they later left their jobs and were in that role for a longer period of time, then they realized that actually that time enabled them to develop the skills, the confidence, to begin to parent in a self-directed way rather than deferring to the guidance of the spouse. So the time factor, I think, is important.
So 2 weeks to...
We could start with a month. So, for example, in Sweden, they used to have this take it or lose it system where 1 month was given purely for fathers, non-transferable, exclusive paternity leave. Initially, I don't think it was accepted, so easily, but over time it was normalized and it became part of society. And today, if we look at Sweden and other Scandinavian countries, we see dads with their toddlers out in public, looking after them. So I think this could signal a shift for Singapore too.
Yeah, I'm sure dads would love a month home with the kids.
Use it or lose it.
Yeah. Thank you, Yvonne. Thank you very much for coming into the studios and sharing that with us. Very important information there. Yvonne Arivalagan, she's Research Associate at the Institute of Policy Studies.